Hey, Hawkeye fans, Chad Leistikow with Tyler Tachman, both of the Des Moines Register, for our Tuesday Hawk Central podcast. Sorry we missed you last week, obviously the holiday week. We had to rush our regular radio show to the finish line, and we had the Black Friday game, which of course we talked about in our post-game pod, Tyler. But now we've moved on to the Big Ten championship game. Obviously, an enormous challenge ahead, and we got a chance to talk to Kirk Ferentz on Sunday, a handful of players on Monday, and now a bunch more players today, and Kirk Ferentz again today. So we have learned a lot in the last couple of days. What stands out to you from maybe the Hawkeyes side of the message?
One from Kirk Ferentz is that I think he understands pretty well the task at hand. That Iowa basically needs to play a near perfect game. They need to execute their brand of football basically to perfection, and that means, and this is me speaking now, eliminating some of those mistakes they had in the Nebraska game, whether it be the blocked field goals, those are the kickoffs out of bounds. Those are, the smaller details are going to have to really be in order. The other thing is that, the players have pretty, constantly been asked about what, it's almost like a David Goliath matchup in terms of the perception of who, the favorite, which is obviously Michigan. And they're all basically saying they're blocking it out. They're, they have to play the game. It's not the game isn't won just by who's favored. Like that's the beauty of sports. You have to play the game. And, it seems like maybe they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because of that. And, a lot of the talk leading up to the game, I wouldn't necessarily put like a ton of stock in, just because you have to play the game. And, one way or the other, you can't let your emotions get too high, whether that be because you think you're going to win or because you're a real underdog. So I feel like that's been kind of the dynamic the last few days.
The sense I've gotten to cover Iowa, Michigan now. This will be 4 of the last 5 years they faced them in. 19, lost over there 10-3, 20. They were supposed to play them in Champions Week. Michigan bowed out because of COVID. 21, of course, was the Big Ten title game, 42-3. And then last year, 27-14 at Kinnick, where Iowa hadn't scored until the fourth quarter. So points has been very difficult to come by against Jim Harbaugh. The thing that has struck me about Michigan, covering this game, looking into this matchup over the years, especially the last 3 years now, is they're almost like a better version at every level except punting and maybe defense. I don't know. Defense is pretty close, but as Iowa, they coach fundamentals, tackling, blocking. I mean, you hear national guys talking about Michigan. They're like, yeah, they don't do anything fancy, but they just block and tackle well, and they do the little things right. And that's kind of the program, I guess, goal for Iowa every year. They just don't have the players that Michigan does. So that's kind of the challenge for this matchup. And I think that's why, not to take anything away from Ohio State, but kind of why I was of the opinion that Iowa had a better shot at Ohio State, just because it's like playing a different type of team. It's like if you played, let's say Fran McCaffrey's team, really good at running the ball up and down the floor, but you're playing a team that's got it's really good at that too, but with better athletes. Like
Creighton. So you're basically describing the Iowa Creighton game, right?
Yeah, but yeah, kind of.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. But maybe Creighton times 2. So it's a really tough challenge for the Hawkeyes, and we're going to get into our how Iowa could win this game in our Wednesday radio show. But as far as just sort of like the players' mentality, getting their minds right, I feel like from listening to Iowa players the last few days, I feel good about the way that they're not overwhelmed. They're kind of finding motivation. I thought Mason Richmond was probably especially good on this stuff. And maybe you can speak more to that. But just as far as it just seems like they are giving themselves a chance and they're not freaking out about the challenge ahead.
I think the comment Mason made was about like what Joel Klatt said on the broadcast, like kind of poking fun at Iowa. The broadcast between the Michigan Ohio State game.
Yeah, the little engine that could, he said.
Yeah, right. And it does, I guess, sort of the narrative. It does kind of fit into something more fundamental that Iowa is just kind of viewed as an underdog nationally, maybe, or you know, there's I would almost say like a stigma around national around the program because of the offense. And like Kirk Ferentz said today, like people love not to love us, and it's like it has partly because of the offense been easy to kind of make fun of, and it's a thing on social media of how low can the over under go, and it's every week it's a historical low, whoever they're playing. So I think that feeds into the narrative, but I was also just made up of a lot of like underdog stories, and I think that's kind of what makes them so special. Like you look at Jay Higgins, one Power 5 offer in high school. Now he's one of the best linebackers, if not the best linebacker in college football. Quinn Schulte, like his recruiting profile didn't even have any stars on it. He's a really good safety now for Iowa. There's so many guys like on Iowa that just kind of embody that, like they're overlooked or don't have that quite flash that maybe your 5 stars or 4 stars have, but Iowa makes it happen, and that's kind of reflected in the style of football they play, right? That it's not a run and gun. It's they're going to let the other team make mistakes. So it does kind of feed into this game of Iowa being an underdog feeds into a larger narrative of like just how Iowa is perceived nationally, and maybe not getting a lot of respect, but feeling like they still have stuff to prove.
So I got a couple thoughts in my mind here. I'm trying to decide which way to go. Let's talk about what you did first. I think if people out there took the time to understand the Iowa story of this season, they would have a lot of backers. But like I think you framed it really well, Tyler. It's just sort of like the quick social media narrative of, oh, their offense sucks. It's hard to watch them. And yeah, it is hard to watch the offense at times. We've been through it together. We all have, right? Hawkeye fans and reporters. But there are just a lot of underdog stories. I mean, probably no bigger underdog story than Deacon Hill. I mean, he is like the epitome of this season. A guy that doesn't really look like a quarterback, didn't play like a quarterback for a lot of the season, but now he's kind of starting to play like a quarterback. Pro Football Focus had him as one of Iowa's highest rated players at Nebraska, even with the few mistakes that he had. I think he's making better decisions overall. Still not perfect, but he's making the makeables when he needs to at times, enough to win. And you kind of got to give him credit. I mean, he came off that Michigan State bench, and he won. I mean, he won every Big Ten game for Iowa, right? I mean, he's 7-1 since he came in. Because you got to give him the Michigan State game, don't you?
Well, except the Minnesota, right? Everything.
That's what I mean. He's 7-1.
Yeah.
Like all of Iowa's wins, I mean, he gets credit for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I mean, right. That's something. So anyway, and even think about, we're going to talk about guys coming back from injury, but like a guy like Caleb Brown, like I know he's not an underdog story, but it's a guy that was benched, didn't even dress 1 week. Caleb Johnson, same thing. I mean, it's just there's not like, they're like out of stars. Like all the guys you would love to see on the field on Saturday, Cade McNamara, Eric All, Luke Lachey, Cooper DeGia. Those would probably be the 4 guys you'd want to see out there more than anybody. Maybe. I can't think of maybe Jay Higgins now, but he's his own underdog story. But I don't know. It's just, it is, I guess it's, we in Iowa, I feel like, have kind of grown to appreciate this team, but I just don't think that appreciation is shared outside of maybe Iowa City.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's part of what makes this matchup interesting. And that Michigan too has dealt with their own set of drama, definitely more self-inflicted than Iowa, but with, not having Jim Harbaugh on the sideline for various stretches. And I think you made a good point before of how Michigan is like a better. They do what Iowa does, but at a higher level, and it's almost like Iowa is gonna have to un-Iowa Michigan, if that makes sense. Like they're gonna have to beat them, Michigan, in a way that teams can beat Iowa, which is forcing them to make mistakes. I think the turnover battle is just gonna be massive, whereas Iowa needs to find a way to create havoc on defense. And I think probably one of the most key guys in doing that might be Sebastian Castro. 3 interceptions on the season. One of those was a pick six against Iowa State. He has really all season wreaked havoc on opponents. So that's why, as far as like Iowa needs to basically play mistake-free football, but it also needs to force Michigan into mistakes that they normally wouldn't make, and being able to create some weird stuff defensively, whether that be Sebastian Castro, Jay Higgins, someone on the defensive line. I think, to me, that's going to be, if Iowa wants a shot at pulling off an upset, that's going to be one of the huge keys.
It would just, to build on what I was talking about earlier, just would be, if you could just pick one of those guys, let's say of the 4 guys I mentioned, if you could pick one guy to be back for this game, I realize it's not possible. Who would it be?
Of the
4, McNamara, Lachey, all DeJean.
I mean, that's tough because I would maybe say Kade, but like I don't. Which version of Kade are you getting? Are you getting?
Yeah, let's say good version.
Okay,
like
yeah,
his best.
Yeah, I would probably say Kade because I think Iowa's defense will be able to keep it in the game. Yeah, someone says Cooper. Okay, well,
I was gonna say Cooper, but yeah, go ahead. I want to hear your Kade.
No, I think
I agree too.
Because I think Iowa's defense is gonna do enough to keep it in shouting distance, at least, maybe until at least the fourth quarter. But it's going to be up to, which has basically been the storyline for most of the season, of like, can Iowa's offense do enough? And I think one of the keys is, can Iowa just hold on to the ball for a while? Like, can they possess it a while? Can they keep it out of Michigan's hands? The line of scrimmage is going to be huge. This offensive line has improved over the course of the season. It sounds encouraging with some of the injuries they've dealt with of who might be available Saturday, that Logan Jones, Jennings Dunker, sound like they might be available. And a guy like Leishon Williams, who has been really good, Caleb Johnson, who has been good in flashes, Jazz Patterson, can they run the ball effectively? Because I just don't see a sustainable path to where you're going to have to rely on Deacon Hill to win the game. He might need to make some good passes, but I just don't. If you get in a shootout, it's over. Iowa cannot afford to get in a shootout. I think it needs, like I said, play almost mistake-free football, but it also needs to do some things to, jumble it up for Michigan. But anyways, that got sidetracked.
You got way off track there.
Yeah, I forgot what I was talking about. Hey, no, because
I asked about one of 4 players. And now we're talking about Leishon Williams somehow.
I think they needed the offense. I think the defense would do close to enough. So that's. But what is your?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, Cooper DeJean for me, just because I just feel like it's such a missed opportunity. I know today he won Big Ten Defensive Back of the Year, so awesome, and Return Specialist of the Year for not even playing a full season. So that's awesome for him. But it would have been so epic, I feel like, to go into this game. And now you've got a month of him maybe playing a little more offense. And maybe now you play him 15, 20, 25 snaps on offense, and he's playing every snap on defense. Maybe he's making a big punt return if they ever force him to punt. It just would have been like almost an Iron Man type of performance, because he can do so much, and he's the one explosive guy that can take it to the house on defense, on special teams, and offense. So I would have just loved to have seen that on Saturday. And they, like I said, they won 7 games without Cade McNamara. So I'd go DeJean. Obviously, getting any of those tight ends back. I know people have asked about Lachey. I asked about Lachey last week. Not an option this week for the Big Ten title game, unfortunately, unless they're going to really surprise us. But I don't think so. I guess we'll see on the injury report. If he's questionable on the injury report, then we can all get excited. Let's get into our second topic now, Tyler, which is, you touched on it, the guys coming back from injury. It was I feel like a really good news Tuesday on the injury front, because the four guys that you wondered about all seem like they're coming back. Jennings Dunker at right tackle, Caleb Brown at receiver, Deontay Vines at receiver, Logan Jones at center. So these are four starter level players coming back. At least three of them are starter level players. Brown's maybe jumped Vines in this time, but to me, the biggest one I don't know. I'll start with Dunker. I feel like, having watched Aiden Hutchinson just murder Jack Plum off the edge 2 years ago, you can't go into this game without solidified right tackle pass blocking. So I think that helps a lot. Hopefully he's close to 100%.
Yeah, the line additions would be huge, because Iowa's ability to control the line on both sides of on offense and defense is, I think, going to be crucial. But Caleb Brown, I mean, that would be a massive lift if they could get him back, because he's one of,
well, he's back.
He's back. He is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's one of those game breakers that can make explosive plays, that you can get the ball in his hands and he can kind of create something out of nothing. So if Iowa's offense is going to be able to do enough, he's a guy that I feel like can really lift that. Deontay Vines, it doesn't hurt having him back, but he just, he's been out the last few games. He was inconsistent before that. I feel like Caleb, the way that he has come on the last few games, will be, would be a significant lift. And I just want to address, someone said in the comments, remind me what a good Kade did for the offense. I think that's fair, but the thing is, I don't think we really saw a good Kade in this offense. The good Kade is the one that led Michigan to a Big Ten title and a college football playoff berth. So I think that's where it gets kind of clouded of which Kade you're getting. Anyways, yeah, Caleb Brown, I think he can be a game breaker and a guy that can alter the complexion, of the game in a matter of seconds if he gets in the open field.
Agreed. Yeah, I thought it was a significant piece of news to hear both Dunker and Brown. Those are the two biggies for me coming back. And to your point on McNamara, one more. Kirk Ferentz on Sunday, because we were talking to Michigan media was on the call too. So they had a lot of questions about McNamara, et cetera. And Ferentz said in that press conference, we thought we were going to have an excellent offense this year with Cade McNamara. And he said it all started changing when he got that quad injury on August 12th. And he was never the same until the ACL on the second or third drive against Michigan State in Game 5. And then I wrote a little bit about Cade McNamara today, what he said on the Matt and Laura Vanderberg podcast about helping the team prepare for this game, which I thought was really interesting. So go read that at hawkcentral.com. He's trying to help as much as he can. He knows their tendencies on defense and offense. Obviously, he would 4 years in as a quarterback. But he also said, the first drive of that Michigan State game, I think they drove right down the field, looked good, and then they kind of stalled out. But he felt like they were finally coming around, so that's why it was sort of cruel that they got a field goal on the very first drive of that game. I'm looking back at it now, and so then he goes out right after that. But he felt like that offense was kind of starting to come together. Yeah, Vines for 23, Regaini for 14, Stilianos for 9. And then they ended up getting a field goal. But anyway, back to the injury guys. Logan Jones, I know some people in the text group have been, didn't Ellsbury play well enough to beat him out? Well, he did play really well. I'm going to guess that coaches are going to go with Logan Jones if he's healthy. But I think the best part about Logan Jones coming back is that you've got options there. Like, what if Tyler Ellsbury gets hurt? Then you're really in trouble at center. So that's just going to help out on Saturday. And the same deal. I mean, if Logan Jones can't cut it or whatever, I'm sure they'll put in Ellsbury, but it gives you more depth options. maybe Ellsbury could go play left guard if need be. I don't know. At least it gives you some options. I know Ellsbury was like the next man in for Mason Richmond if he went down at left tackle. So that's another thing out there. So all depth helps on Saturday. Any final thoughts about what you heard, Tyler, today, the other day from players maybe that we haven't talked about?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it for the most part, just of the kind of underdog perception. It doesn't feel like I was letting it get too overblown, and the way that they've dealt with everything this season, this doesn't seem too major. I feel like everything that they've dealt with up to this point has prepared them for a situation like this, whether, it be dealing with the sports wagering investigation, to all the injuries, to news that Brian Ferentz won't be coming back after this season, to the invalid fair catch. I mean, this team is battle tested. Michigan is going to be by far the best team they've faced this season, but there aren't going to be circumstances, I don't think, thrown in the game that are going to totally derail it, or that they haven't really seen before. So they've seen just about everything under the sun so far this season. So as much as they can against a team like Michigan, I feel like they're prepared for a stage like this.
And I guess this came up Sunday, so I guess we haven't talked about it, but Drew Stevens sounds like he's back as kicker as long as he has a good finishing week of practice. So I think that's good news too. I mean, if he could be back in a good mental state. I rewatched the game, obviously, as I always do for DVR Monday. And, it's funny, like the first field goal he made, but they had to delay a game penalty, and then it got blocked. I mean, if that doesn't happen, I wonder if the whole mentality of the day changes. And then he did make his second field goal. And then came like a kick out of bounds, then the block, then another kick out of bounds. So you could see how it was kind of unraveling. But I don't think it's like some perpetual problem for Drew Stevens or anything like that. I'm pretty confident that he can get right back on track. They've got great mental health or mental coaches. I don't want to say mental health, but just
sports psychologist.
Yeah, that one. That's the one. Sports psychologist. Yeah. So that's good. I mean, he's got a good leg. He could be a factor. I mean, they need to be able to punch in 47-yard field goals. Dome conditions, you got to feel like you're, as a kicker, that's about as ideal as you can get. So that's another little bit of news. All right, let's talk about All Big Ten, Tyler. That came out today. Good job writing that up on the fly in the middle of our availability. I guess let's start with the good news for Iowa. First team All Big Ten, 3 players. Cooper DeJean, Jay Higgins, and Torrey Taylor. All of them got Big Ten. Well, no, Higgins didn't, but DeJean and Taylor also with additional honors.
DeJean got punt return specialist, or was it just specialist, or was it
return specialist?
Return specialist of the year. And he had the one punt return, and we know that he could have had the other that was taken away. We'll call it 1.5.
And he got robbed at Northwestern too on that. What wasn't that? Then they have like a block in the back or something when he had that big line at Northwestern.
Yeah. I think it was
kind of a lame block in the back call. But anyway, he got a lot called back this year.
He got. I mean, the awards he got from the Big Ten. He got like basically everything. Like, he didn't get everything, but he got a lot. Because he also got defensive back of the year, first team All Big Ten defense, first team All Big Ten specialists, and then the other 2. So
yeah, and these
actually not even playing the last 2 games of the season. So
well, and getting Big Ten defensive back of the year is super significant because All-American voting is going on right now, and people that don't watch the Big Ten are going to see that and like, oh, the best defensive back in the Big Ten is Cooper DeJean. And he was a return specialist of the year. I better put him on my All-American team. And he should be. He would have a really good chance to be a consensus All-American like Jack Campbell was last year. And I think Torrey Taylor, Ray Guy Award finalist today, one of three. Cooper DeJean, a Jim Thorpe Award finalist today also. So those are two significant honors for both of those players. I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if Taylor, really surprised if Taylor doesn't get consensus All-American. DeJean, I think, will. But that's pretty good. That's a pretty good representation of this team because those two players arguably, Higgins is right there too, but those two players really swung the field more than anybody this year.
Obviously, I might be biased because of watching every Iowa game this season, but I thought Higgins should have gotten Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Newton got it from Illinois, which, not to take anything away from him, like I'm sure he was very qualified for it. But I mean, Higgins is the things that he's done. It feels like in a tangible with him being like one of the leading tacklers in all of FBS, leading tackler in the Big Ten, but also just like what really can't be quantified, which is the work that it took to get to this point and the way that he has led like an elite defensive unit. Like, cause when he's out there making calls on the field, I think I've said this before, he just looks like a madman, when he's making calls. And it's really, it's crazy how to have to fill in for Jack Campbell, who's, an Iowa legend, how seamlessly Jay Higgins has made it look, the level that he has been able to play out. And now it's like the narrative has gone from, how is Iowa going to replace Jack Campbell to how is Iowa going to replace Jay Higgins and who's going to come after him? He still could come back next season, but he said he's undecided right now. But he's just been one of the more, I guess, like fun to watch storylines of the season, the level he's played at.
Yeah, I think I thought he would be Big Ten linebacker of the year for sure. It was not. Tommy Eichenberg of Ohio State got that award. So I feel like that was a little bit of a snub. I was surprised, but I guess Iowa can't win all the awards. They got DB and punter. But I think the biggest snub I would say would be the fact that Sebastian Castro was honorable mention for coaches. Now he got second team all Big Ten from us smart people in the media. But honorable mention, that guy, he is the number. So I have a PFF login, and he is number one in the country among defensive backs in grade. And it's hard for me to believe that coaches did not give him a nod. There must be, I don't know what they're looking at there. That surprised me.
I feel as good as his numbers have been, I feel like there's two, just like, you have to watch him to really appreciate him because he plays so hard. He hits so hard. He plays with like a, kind of a reckless abandon. That won't really show up as much on the stat sheet. So maybe that's part of it. And going back to Higgins too, I feel like part of the reason he maybe hasn't gotten the respect regionally and nationally that he deserves is like, this is his first season, like really on that stage. Right. And that's not to any of his fault because he was just behind Jack Campbell, but some of these other guys have been around for 2 or more years. And Jay just isn't as much of like a known commodity around the Big Ten and around the country because this is his first season playing at this, as a regular starter. So, maybe that factors a little bit into it as well. I'm not sure.
So the offense comes out tomorrow. Not expecting any first teamers, of course, for Iowa. I think outside shot, maybe Connor Colby on second team, potentially. He's got a really good Pro Football Focus grade. I guess we'll see. You never know. It's hard to, as a voter, it is hard to know on the offensive line. You just kind of have to ask around more so on that because I use PFF and I use, what the schools say about their own guys and kind of take it all into stock. But offensive line's tough unless it's obvious. Others, all Big Ten. Let's see here. Joe Evans, third team. Nick Jackson, third team on the media. And that's crazy. The coaches first, second, and third teams for defense had 2 Hawkeyes. Can you believe that? 2.
And that's also sort of the thing, is where coaches aren't going to be watching every single game. You probably, or you watch the games obviously that you're playing against, but it's not like they're sitting down on Saturdays and watching every single game. So it might be more difficult to gauge. And I know they have film and stuff, but that's kind of, I guess, the difference between football and basketball, right? College wise, is where football, almost everything happens on the exact same day. So, and a lot of stuff is in a similar window. So it's difficult to see everything that's happening, where basketball, it's, different days, time slots. It's much easier to just watch it casually at a higher volume. So,
yeah, I'm just kind of staring at this coach's defensive team.
You look enthralled by that. I wasn't sure if it was what I was saying.
I just can't believe there's only 2 Hawkeyes on the first 3 teams with that defense.
Yeah.
And that's all they had to win games. They won 10 games without offense. And they got 2 guys on the first, second, and third team. That's pretty wild. The media much smarter. 5 Hawkeyes on the first 3 teams, and honorable mention for several others: Logan Lee, Deontay Craig, Quinn Schulte, Wyatt Black. So anyway, and then of course Torrey Taylor, Drew Stevens, honorable mention as well. So anyway, any final thoughts, Tyler, before we go?
It's a long shot for Iowa to win Saturday, but so has its season. I think if you would have learned everything that would happen this season before it started and predict what Iowa's record would be, maybe 7 wins. I probably would have said 7 wins at most, given all the hurdles. But Iowa's here 10-2 overall, 7-2 in the Big Ten. This season has entirely been a long shot. So, and it's been weird. It's been crazy. It's been chaotic. So I don't think Iowa's going to win, but so many things have happened this season that it also wouldn't shock me if they somehow do pull it out.
Well, we will get into the matchup itself on our Wednesday night radio show. Make sure to catch that podcast either on our website or on Apple. Cakes and will put that out as well. So plenty of platforms to find that tomorrow night. And then we will have our post-game pod on, I don't know, middle of the night, I guess.
On Sunday? Early Sunday, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. The kickoff time, I'm looking at it right now, is 8:17 p.m. Eastern, Tyler. So we got to get a rest. Got to get a rest Friday night.
Need some naps, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining us, listeners. The basketball game tomorrow, right? Hawkeye men?
Yep, North Florida at Carver Hawkeye.
Florida.
8 Central.
8 Central?
Yes.
Oh, boy. Okay. We'll get our Hawk Central radio show out to you before that starts. Anyway, thanks for listening. Tyler Tachman, Chad Leistikow saying so long. Talk to you soon.